Okay. Tony, wake up, man. Tony,
I'm
wake
here.
up.
I'm looking at Facebook, looking to see what I see.
Hello, everybody out there. I'm Mike Sokol, and let's see what I say. I got too many things floating around here. Hi from Trinity. Let me get rid of that. There we go. Too many buttons here going on here. Tony, you are, where are you sitting right now? No, first off, does everybody know Tony Barthel from Stressless Camping? Show of hands. Yeah. Y'all do. Yeah, he knows him. So, Tony, you are someplace on the West Coast, and I'm someplace on the East Coast. Where the heck are you? You're in the middle of a
Yeah,
train yard, right?
I am literally on the edge of the Nevada Northern Railroad yard in lovely Ely, Nevada.
Ah,
So we are playing with trains for the next few days.
excellent, excellent. Well, the reason why we got interested in this, Tony just published a piece about he had done some pretty good studies on what it would take for solar power to run his new 12-volt DC refrigerator sitting right behind him. I've done a lot of lab work. We're all kind of interested in this, and I get questions constantly about what it takes. We know some stuff. I don't say we know all the stuff, but we know a fair amount of stuff, and we can make what I call a swag, which is a scientific wild ass guess as to what you could need for this. And if you like some more, like I said, if you've got questions we can't answer, what we'll do, we'll get some information together and I'll post it later in the week or next week, or even if it was something really, really important, we would do another webcast like this. So Tony, are we ready to proceed?
Well, we have one issue, one technical issue.
And that is?
I got to get a beer out of this fridge.
Okay, get the beer. Get the beer. Oh, when
Let's
I
see.
come,
Oh, look, there's
look at,
one now.
see, I got a refrigerator in the studio. So when I come out, I think we're going to both be at the Frog Rally here.
We
Should I
are.
go load up I need mass in my refrigerator for testing. Should I go load it up with a bunch of beer again?
Yes, you made some great choices last year.
We have a bunch of micro breweries in Western Maryland. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Okay, so let's go ahead. I basically have like a little short PowerPoint presentation that kind of sets the speed of this. I will talk about what I know. Tony will talk about what he knows.
Uh-oh.
And then you guys can ask what you don't know or what you hope that we do know. How does that sound? Okay, so going into
And whatever
PowerPoint,
we don't know, we'll make up.
we will make up. Okay, so right now, okay, so yeah, you can hear me? Okay, so this is basically how much solar and battery do you need to run a 12-volt DC refrigerator or an absorption refrigerator or a residential refrigerator while boondocking? Let me get my buttons aligned. Here we go. There we go. So now, first, a little bit on the mechanics here. And the heart of every refrigerator is got to be some way to move the coolant around. So then they move them around in a loop. Now, I've just been installing, believe it or not, a quad mini split air conditioner in my house here for the last week or so. And so I'm full of refrigerant ideas and how all of this works and starting to get measurements. I am amazed at how these inverter technologies work. A little different. That'll be a subject for a future webcast. But now many of the 12-volt refrigerators use what we call a Danfos swing compressor to do this. Rather than a regular rotary compressor, a couple of the advantages of the swing compressor is they can actually be easily changed to how much freon they're pumping or coolant that they're pumping around. And they don't have any big inrush current when they start. But they have problems being sized up to really, really large refrigerators. But they really, really work well. I've got one in my refrigerator in my little RV. Tony's got a bigger one there, and I've got a couple of them. I had a Vitrifrigo 12 or 8 cubic foot. I have a Dometic 10 cubic foot one refrigerator right now in my garage, a 12 volt DC for testing. My first lab test, stuff that we're going to discuss here, I'll show you what I know. It was this Vitrifrigo 8 cubic foot. It's actually a marine refrigerator with top freezer, Danfoss compressor. it has both a 12-volt input and a 120-volt AC source, but it's got its own power supply. So basically, when you plug it in 120 volts, it just makes 12 volts. One thing that I will note, if you do have a possibility of running directly off of DC, you want to do that. You really don't want to like take 12 volts DC, step it up to 120 volts, and then take the 120 volts and convert it back down to 12 volts. When I've done that, I've lost like 30 or 40% of my refrigeration time. So these things, so if you can do 12 volts, do 12 volts. You know, if you're plugged in, it doesn't really matter to a campground. The compressor is always 12 volts DC in these things. So here's one of the first tests I did. This was just a little basic. So I had a Brighter Products, a 100 amp hour lithium ion ready battery discharge. I did this as I said, okay, how long will it take to discharge this battery from 100% down to 5% state of charge? That was my test. My first one, I used a Marinco 1,000 watt pure sine wave inverter. And a Vitrifrigo 8 cubic foot refrigerator using its 120 volt power supply. So I basically did what I just told you not to do. I went from the battery through an inverter up to 120 volts, sent it to the refrigerator, which took to 120 volts, converted it down to 12 volts. I didn't have a way to really raise the room temperature above 70 degrees, so your mileage will vary. But with a 1,000 watt inverter, I was able to run the thing for 23 hours, and I had this thing cranked as cold as it would go. It was pretty darn cold. My second test, I had a tiny little pure sine wave inverter, we'd call it a Galaxy 250, just a little baby one, and I did the same trick. So I used a 100 amp hour battery, the smallest inverter I would power this thing, the 8 cubic foot refrigerator using the 120 volt supply, again, an average room temp of 70 degrees, and it ran it for 29 hours. Now you can see with the 1 kilowatt inverter, it would only run it 23 hours. With the 250 watt one, because the 1 kilowatt one had more overhead. It had a fan and all this other stuff that was running. It would draw like 10 watts just sitting there. This little guy here really had very, very low quiescent current. So this is another thing to look at. If you're going to be putting in an inverter just to run your refrigerator, don't go get a honking big one, because they will just eat up extra power sitting there. And then I went ahead and I hooked it up directly to 12 volts DC. Same refrigerator, same thing, same amount of beer, same temperature. It ran it for 38 hours. Now, I'm taking it from 100% state of charge down to 6%. So you probably won't do that. But I was just trying to get an apples to apples comparison. So you could see I could do it with 23 hours with a 1,000 watt inverter running into its 120 volt input, or 29 hours with a much smaller power supply, I should say an inverter, or if I just hooked it directly up DC with nothing else running, 38 hours. Now remember, this is not like there's any other loads on it. This is just one comparison. So I started to get some idea of how this would work. So I said, okay, what about my 120 volt refrigerator downstairs? So I've got a 16 cubic foot one. I looked at how much power it uses today. So it's like 2.4 kilowatt hours per day. I ran through the numbers and did a few tests. So a calculated test, a residential refrigerator, a 16 cubic foot refrigerator on the same battery would give 10 to 12 hours of runtime. You see the idea? I could go from 23 hours to 29 hours to 38 hours, or residential ones are power hogs. They just are. So, Danfos compressor refrigerator makes boondocking on solar using a single 100 amp hour lithium battery. It's like a Brighter Products or anything that you've got, is a possibility. And I went through all the numbers. Even 200 or 300 watts of solar panels would do it. Just barely. But you guys aren't the only thing that you're not running. You're not just running the refrigerator. You're running the other stuff. So to power a few other 12-volt appliances, you want to be able to do the fan, the lights, the pump. You would want to double this. So my gut feel is for any of these 12-volt refrigerators, you're going to need at least 200 amp hours of 12-volt lithium battery storage and 400 to 600 watts of solar panels. Of course, more is better. Again, your mileage may vary depending on the temperature of the air, how much the kids get in the refrigerator, and all that other kind of stuff. So, I have a feeling, 100. Like I said, if you want to do this realistically, at least 200 amp hours of lithium battery, at least 400 to 600 watts of solar panels. On my RV, I have a 400 amp hour master volt battery and 600 watts of solar panels because that's all I can fit on the roof because it's just a little toy hauler. So that's what I learned in the lab. Okay, Tony, now
Hello.
you're up for field data. Tony, take it away. Tony, tell them what you know, man.
Well, I was curious. Well, let me go back. I did an article about this at Stressless Camping, but I was speaking with a Lippert engineer because I am fascinated by Lippert's new air conditioner, the Chill Cube. And we got to talking about all sorts of RV stuff. And I believe he asked me, how do you like the fridge in your RV? Well, I didn't. And it was a GE. That was when we had a COVID built unit, and it was a GE fridge. It was a 12-volt fridge, and it was in almost every way terrible. And then we had Dometic replace that fridge at a frog rally with their 10.7 cubic foot fridge. It was better in every way and more efficient, and just in every way it was better. But then we bought this new trailer in November, and the fridges that the gentleman from Lippert was talking about, he said, before you pass judgment, look at some of the new stuff that we're coming out with. It is much better, it's much more efficient, and has better features. And by coincidence, behind me, this new Rockwood Mini Light came with it's a Magic Chef fridge. It's identical to a Furrion offering. And so I got curious, and the trailer sitting out in our yard, the fridge happened to be off, so I fired it up and went out every half hour and 45 minutes and looked at the consumption. And the interesting thing to me, so first of all, we have quite the solar and lithium package on this trailer. There's 1,200 watts of solar on the roof and a 460 amp hour master volt battery. So there's a lot of power here. At no point did that ever get below 100% state of charge running that until the next morning when it was 88%. So it was running overnight. I believe it went to 88% state of charge.
Did you want me to put that chart up for you?
Yeah. So that's I made a little chart about that.
There you go. Just the numbers.
So there it is. 88% stated. So it took 12% to run and we had nothing in the fridge, so it was less efficient just because there's nothing to hold the temperature. But there was also nothing else running in the RV. So no furnace, no lights, nothing. That's 12% loss overnight, purely on refrigerator. So that was interesting in how efficient this thing is and how well it operates on battery power. And unfortunately, I didn't do the test on the Magic Chef, and I didn't do the test on the lousy GE before that. But I suspect, just my gut feeling, that Magic Chef was
You mean the Dometic?
Dometic, right? The Dometic was less efficient, but not significantly so. But the GE was far less efficient, and it was also noisier and blah blah. So my point, I guess, with that was, a lot of people go, well, I hate these new 12-volt fridges. They're not very efficient. And I think it's not a universal statement you can make. There are better and worse examples of them. And I think this, now, the big variable that we won't know, except for a few years from now, and you know how quickly I go through trailers, how long is this thing going to last? I don't
Yeah.
know.
And you know, the thing that's interesting, I had a conversation with I think his name was John Smith. There really is a John Smith out there. The other day, he has a trailer, he has 98,000 miles on it so far, and
Wow.
some of his wiring's loosening up. Now, just imagine, you know, taking your house for 98,000 miles. I wonder how refrigerators will last. I do know the Vitrifrigo one that I had was marine grade, and this thing was meant to be on the ocean pounding in waves. So they were absolutely comfortable that you couldn't shake this thing apart. We will see. Tony, I want you to go out and drive around for 98,000 miles and then come back and
Well,
let us
we've
know.
already we've already put 11,000 miles on this trailer
Well, that's
since
pretty good.
November. So we have traveled all over the place with it. Thus far, it has been bulletproof. This fridge.
Okay.
The
So
one
let's oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
the one challenge I have, and this is my weird way of thinking, why put glass shelves in a moving vehicle? Because we had one of the glass shelves in the GE fridge just implode in the middle of the night. And you got a fridge full of glass. I'd love to see the old wire racks, but people say I'm strange.
Well, back in my previous work history, I worked for Corning Glass, and I know tempered glass. If there's any tiny little imperfection in there, it gets a stress riser, and they literally explode. They really do.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
do.
it's
It's
impressive.
pretty
Except,
magnificent, in fact.
yeah, but then you have a fridge full of shattered
You
glass, and
shattered
that's no
glass,
fun.
right? So
I mean,
let's see.
then
You had a couple of notes here that you said. This was from your article. So how much would you recommend in an RV? How much battery
I
would you
I
think you
would
need?
say at least I would say if you have 100 amp hours and a 400 watts of solar, you may be fine, right? That's if you look at the consumption over a 24-hour period, you may be fine. But what if you're there for 2 or 3 cloudy days? Or if it's cold and you're running your furnace, which one of the things a lot of people don't realize, that blower motor in the furnace really consumes more power than the fridge.
Yeah, they take like eight
So
amps to run. You
it's
have a DC to
crazy.
DC converter in your unit, right?
I do, and so I can recharge with the truck.
Just run the truck for an hour or two.
And they say the one we have, it's a 50 amp converter, is about like having 1,000 watts of solar
Right.
operating really at kind of peak performance. So that's not bad.
No, and the
But
nice thing too with that, whenever you arrive at the campground, if you've driven any distance at all, your batteries are all charged up from your DC to DC charger.
oh yeah, in fact, 2 nights ago, one night, whatever it was, we were at a harvest house at a dinosaur museum, and we had to run the air conditioner. So we ended up, I think, when we left there at about a 40% state of charge. And by the time we were here in Ely, Nevada, we were at 100% state of charge.
Yeah.
So,
And
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 that's,
the,
the 7 pin from the truck, which is minimal, but also the solar. Because the nice thing about being on the highway is full sun exposure.
a lot of sun, yeah. Unless you're driving in tunnels the whole way.
True.
So you also said, there we go. No, there's no sun overnight. That's when the battery reserves come into play.
Right.
And
And that's,
yeah, I've had people that they complain that their 100 amp hour battery can be completely drained by the furnace running, 10 or 12 hours, or a couple of CPAP machines, or
yeah, I mean,
that kind of stuff. They take a lot of juice, especially if you turn on the humidifier.
yeah, those or the furnace, and you combine them, and you can easily kill 100 amp hour battery.
Right.
So more is better.
More is
You,
better. I've seen people walking out of places carrying a pair of 100 amp hour batteries. Now, I've got four 200 amp hour batteries just sitting there looking for a project to do, all matched. That would be 800 amp hours. That would be some serious juice, right? Well, I need to get a little demo trailer that I can hack up and just bolt stuff in. It doesn't have to be pretty, like a rock show.
yeah, yeah, that would be
Okay.
kind of
So
cool.
now I've got some
But yeah,
questions from the field.
if you're well, if I would say if you're boondocking, if that's what you prefer, and I mean the we talk a lot about boondocking on our podcast and all of that because there are some remarkable experiences. As I said at the beginning of this, I'm literally sitting at the edge of a rail yard boondocking in Ely, Nevada, because I like trains, and it's just the experience is really why we do this. 3 nights ago, we were at a winery that was it was beautiful. We were like camping in a postcard. No neighbors, with their awning touching our slide room.
Oh,
Uh, the night after that, we were at a dinosaur museum because I was trying to bone up
oh,
on my history.
oh, oh. Okay. So hold
I
on
was
here.
only
I've got.
working with a skeleton crew.
Okay. So we're going to go to questions here, real quick. But I already have one that came up here. When installing a 120 volt fridge, should we cover up the outside vent and the roof vent? What do you
Oh,
think, Tony?
without a doubt.
Yep.
There's no reason for those because the one so clearly they're replacing a gas absorption
Right.
fridge, and those need the air convection to actually work.
Right.
I'm going to say my past life I worked as the warranty administrator at a dealership, and I would just if there's any ounce of persuasion in my world, I would persuade you to get a 12 volt fridge because my experience was that when there was an issue with residential fridges, not if, when, RV repair, appliance repair people wouldn't touch them. Oh, it's in
Right.
an RV? No. Then RV repair people didn't know how to fix them. So if you can, I would at least look into the 12 volt fridges for that individual. And I'm very pleased with this 10.7 cubic foot Magic Chef behind me. However, there are up to 20 cubic foot 12 volt fridges now.
They generally
So,
have two compressors, usually around 10 cubic feet or so is about the max of the Danfos technology.
yeah.
Although what I saw one camper do, which I thought was genius, he had some sort of refrigerator inside already, but on one of his he had one of those portable ones, like a 12 volt cooler fridge freezer on a slide out on the outside, and he literally opened the door, pulled this thing out on slides, and had beer in there. And I went,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So no sin in
don't
having a second unit that's a little portable one that you could basically take out of there and unhook, throw it in the back
and
of your car if you want to go for the day.
that's how we have our truck configured. There is a 12 volt fridge in the back seat, and
Yeah.
that's good for Costco runs or whatnot. And as we're traveling between stops, we have waters and snacks and all that back there, and they're very reliable and very affordable. Something I just did an article for RV Trader about RV fridges, and Norcold makes a unit that's got the top is the French door type with fridge and freezer, and the
Right.
bottom is a drawer that's user configurable. So you could have it freezer or fridge, which I thought was kind of neat. And again, the neat thing about these 12 volt fridges is, in theory, they're hardened for this mobile lifestyle, this bouncing around that they are part of.
Okay. I've got another question here from the Wandering Curs. I have heard many complaints on the Furrion 12 volt refrigerators. Are you seeing widespread quality issues with the Furrion large fridges? Have you heard anything, Tony?
Oh yeah, I have heard that there are a number of people who have had issues with them. It it seems to be the newer stuff is better, but remains to be seen, right? I think initially Furion had a lot of supply chain issues and challenges, and Lippert bought them, and Lippert's very good at this whole supply chain thing. I suspect the earlier stuff was not as well made, but that's just based on the number of complaints I see about these things. So, yes, I don't disagree with that statement at all. We shall see how these fridges. I run a group of about 12,000 owners of Mini Light, Microlight, and thus far, these fridges have not really had issues other than someone forgot to cut holes, vent holes, in the back plastic on a series of them, and
Ouch.
so it's a recall, and you just cut some holes in the plastic, and all is well. But
Well,
there have not been a lot of complaints about the quality of these.
you know what we could do on our separate respective media blasts. You know, we could ask a question. Have you had a refrigerator failure? And if so, what was the brand? And we would know
It
something.
is. So this is a Freddy's 20. It's from
He said now he's
Steelbender
all of a sudden
Brewery.
he saw a shiny can of beer.
Yeah. Well, I took a sip and it's so good. It's from Steelbender, but what I like, it's a barrel aged orange infused stout. It's fantastic. I'll try to bring some to the
Bring
progress.
some out there. Okay, so now I've got a
Well,
couple
we'll
more
we'll see.
questions that already came in online earlier. Let's see if we can get to those. Hold on. Okay, so here we go. I currently have two small 12-volt DC powered portable units. I'm guessing that's like the little portable fridge freezers. They use
Yeah,
DC to run the Freon pump. I've got one. You've got a couple, three, right?
yeah,
So yeah, you can use the term Freon. However, I've been taken to task. Freon is a brand name, like
yeah.
like
It's a
Pepsi.
product, and
Yeah,
these
so
I
you
think are
can't call it that. So,
typically is it
but can you
R
expand on one?
R 130.
Use the 12-volt larger refrigerators use the same general principle, and I think the current full size units, once they get out of their growing pains, I think they're to be okay. One of the things that I did find is that the residential refrigerators that were not really hardened for the life of bouncing around on the road, they had tons of failures with them, and a number of the refrigerator manufacturers refused to warranty them because they'd
Yeah,
been in an
that
RV. And some of them, to get it out of it, you got to take the slide out or take it out
yeah,
through
or
the
the slide
windshield.
or on a yeah, exactly. It's removing a fridge because if you look at how an RV is built, everything's built basically before the walls on the outside go on. And a lot of times, if you look at the door of your RV, that fridge is not going through that door. And so when we did warranties, there we would take out slide rooms or on motorhomes, take out windshields, and just a potential for leaking.
Okay, so yeah, I think that the technology is getting better at this. One of the things that I've seen people do, it's related, is they'll take a home mini split air conditioner and mount it on their RVs. I worry about that because they're not really designed for that bounce. But
Yeah,
we're going to be doing something before long with a couple of the new basically variable inverter style air conditioners, are we not, Tony?
we are, and I'm really looking forward to
Yeah.
that.
Well,
So,
we'll do a little more on that later. Okay, I got another question here. Let's see. Hang on a second. So Chris says, I have a 22-foot travel trailer, wish to convert to a 12-volt Dometic 8 cubic foot fridge. They wants the actual amp hours on use in summer, say 85 degrees outside temp. Chris, I got to
I
tell you something. A couple of years ago, our friends over at Oh gosh, who's the big the other air conditioner manufacturer? Why can't I think of it? You know who did this stuff?
Coleman,
They gave me, who is it?
Coleman,
No, 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 no.
what's it?
Um,
Oh,
they
Truma.
Truma. They gave me access to their environmental chamber for a month, almost 2 months. And you could pull two full-size Class A's into this thing. I mean, it was massive. I could heat this up to whatever temperature I wanted and cool it down to whatever temperature I wanted. And I had my own German software engineers to go parse the data. This was, I mean, I was getting terabytes of data on this. This was a blast. I wonder if
Yeah.
someone will loan me one for refrigerator testing. Wouldn't that be just
Oh,
fun?
yeah. The
So,
Dometic
but
that we
what do you know
had
about
prior to
you? You
this.
said you had a Dometic before. Wasn't great. Do you have any basic
No,
ideas?
no, it was the Dometic was fantastic. It performed well. It was a really well designed fridge, and the only reason I didn't specify a Dometic on this rig is I wanted to test this Furion or Magic Chef model. But no, the Dometic fridge was fantastic. I suspect it was a little less efficient than this, but not significantly so. And boy, in every way, it performed so well. I had
I've I,
zero
I've got
zero
the
complaints
Dometic 10
about it.
cubic foot one in my garage that's actually working and doing stuff. You know, it wouldn't be that hard for me to meter it up and
Yeah,
also get a sliding scale of the temp because it can get 80 or 90 degrees out where that thing's sitting right now. Why don't I meter that up for us and I'll report back in a month?
that'd be great. But yeah, my feelings on that Dometic fridge was that it was A plus.
Whoops. Too many buttons, too many buttons.
Yeah,
Okay, so now Randy. Okay, so here was one we talked about this before. He says,
yeah.
I have a 22-foot travel trailer, came with an 1800 watt inverter, 200 watts of solar panel, and a pulse width modulated controller rated for 30 amps. There's plenty of open space on the roof. I upgraded the batteries. I have to a single 300 amp hour lithium. It's got a 12, must be a 12 cubic foot Magic Chef fridge. I run two Max Air roof vent fans, a small 120 volt fan at night. And I make a pot of coffee in the morning with a household drip coffee maker, which I turn off as soon as the coffee is done. How much more solar, first, can I add to my current controller? And second, do I need to keep up with my usage? So, Tony, let's talk a little bit about.
Oh,
First off, he said he had a pulse width modulated charge controller for the solar panel. Most all the newest ones are MPPT ones, right?
yeah. This is probably something that the RV manufacturer installed, and it's okay, but I would if I would convert to an MPPT. But the other option is, let's say you don't want to spend money on a new charge controller, fly a couple of 200-watt solar portable panels outside, which gives you the option of moving them to optimize exposure, and
Right.
then some alligator clamps on that battery. That might be the easy and less expensive way, and may actually give you more performance. So, and
So
then see. And also, I got to convince you to use an AeroPress to make coffee because electric, man, AeroPress makes some good coffee, no
they
electricity
do.
needed.
Now, the other thing that I will note, one of the things to look at, if you want to kind of like balance the amount of solar panels that you've got to the amount of batteries that you've got. So if you in fact, I've got a whole article which I can republish. So if you've got 300 amp hours of batteries, you really should have something on the order of 600 watts or so of solar panel. The key, of course, or at least or more. So my gut feel is you want to do some rough calculations. Somewhere between 300 and 400 watt hours of energy is obtainable from a solar panel, depending on where you are, per 100 watt of solar panel. And I can show you the calculations. It would be nice to be able to completely recharge the battery in under 2 days. I think that would be a really good number. I can do it depending on how bright it is. I think, Tony, you could probably do it in a day because you have 1,200 watts worth of solar panels.
Right, but so much depends on you got
the
to keep the
sun
panels
and
clean and the sun
all
and
that other stuff, and that's true. But like the key, of course, is if you have, if for instance, I was doing a thing. If I had my 400 amp hours of solar, of lithium battery with a 100-watt solar panel, would take the better part of a week to recharge that thing.
oh
So,
boy.
so you might be good for one day, but you won't be good for the second or third day if you're boondocking. So there's this balance thing. I should do a class just on that. I did one just for technicians on how to balance this stuff. Maybe I should do it for you guys too. What do you think? I think that would be fun. It's
I
not hard.
I
It's
think
just,
that'd be good.
yeah, I can do this counting on my fingers and toes pretty much. So yeah, so I think that, and Randy, you can add as Tony said, you can do your own outside solar panels, but you're going to need to have some sort of a charge controller, an MPPT. Generally speaking, for each 10 amp of that, you can do at least 100 watts of solar panels. So if you were going to change that out, I would put a 40 or a 50 amp one in there if you're going to.
Yeah.
That way, with the 50 amp one, you could easily put 600 watts of solar panels on the roof. And that would seem to match up, snuggle up nicely to your 300 amp hours of lithium batteries.
And plus, a lot of these better charge controllers have the ability to monitor them on your phone. And I mean,
Yes.
that's a great way to spend a lot of time around the campsite, is looking at your phone like, ooh, how much power do I have, and such. Ask my poor wifey. It's not campfires, s'mores, and camp songs. It's,
Oh,
ooh,
Tony,
how
is this
fully
the one that's
charged am I?
stalking you from the dinette 6 feet away?
I could touch her. She's right there. Look, I will very quickly pan over, and
She's
there she
waving.
is,
There,
working
there, there, there she is. That's right. There you go.
on the Stressless
Uh, s-
Camping RV podcast, no less.
Stalking you. Right. She's always there. Ah. Um, so let's see. We've answered a few of your questions here. You've already answered. Let's see. This isn't a question. Gary Conboy says he gives us a round of applause, clap, or one hand. I think he's supposed to do multiples, but okay,
Right.
that's all good. Terry Brown, another buddy. Hello, Mike, and
Oh,
Tony from Ceres.
Sarah's,
Sears.
California.
Look at this. That place. Gary gave me a second single clap. All very good. All quite excellent. Are we having any other? Let's see. I've got Blake is on here from Bel Air, Maryland, and not far down from me. I'm out in Western Maryland, in Hagerstown. Let's see. Here we go. Here's another one. Any thoughts on isotherm 12-volt refrigerators? I use my portable Jackery to percolate my coffee. I've actually done entire tests with a Jackery on how to make cappuccino, properly frothed ones, how much power it took. And I also did one using a Jackery showing how much it would take to make sock puppets. So I call that sock puppet energy
Yep.
units spews. So see, the English language doesn't have enough words to contain my thoughts. I have to make them. So have you heard on the isotherm 12-volt refrigerators? You know
I
anything,
don't
Tony?
know much about them at all, to be honest. That's a foreign item to me. However, to his point of coffee, I have used a Jackery 1500 to run an induction cooktop to boil water. Well, not boil, raise the water temperature to 190 degrees to use my AeroPress to make coffee.
See, he's in
That's two
he's in
plugs in
AeroPress
one
mode.
show. Oh,
Yeah.
it's the best for camping.
So let's see. Any other questions here? So any other things from the field? Like I said, the I'm getting enamored with the whole idea of these variable RPM compressors. Like I said, the one in my house it's a 3-ton unit. It's a 4-banger. They can do 4 of them,
Right.
and I just fired that up, and I had both a ton and a half and a 3/4 ton, 18,000 BTU and a 9,000 BTU interior unit running for testing, I was out measuring this thing that it was drawing 3.5 amps at 240 volts, which would be 7 amps.
It's
It would be 7 amps at 120 volts. And you can't hear the darn thing. You can't hear it inside of the house. It's just crazy compared to the
it's
hurricane
amazing.
that happens when I turn on my unit.
Now I have to be careful bemoaning what is above my head, which some of you may be able to hear. But by gosh, there new air conditioner technology for RVs is here now, and it's so much better. The
It
only
is
variable that
so
we don't know is long-term reliability.
We don't know. Oh, look, Terry Brown just sent me a note in. So when I was talking about spews, that was his wife wanting to use her featherweight sewing machine and forced me to invent the unit of measure of called spews. I'm not
So
going to get a
she
socal
wanted
anything, but I'm going to be a spew.
the full answer and not some so-so information.
I oh oh so bad. Get it so bad. Um, yeah, that. Well, like I said, now, what if you guys, if you're on my website, I'm going to put, if you've got my email, I'll put it down in the address down here later after this is done. You can send, and I'll also include a link that you can send Tony any questions. If you've had any failures on any refrigerators, and even if it's a failure on the absorption, we didn't talk about the absorption stuff much. One of the things that's interesting that people don't understand, and I did a whole article on this. And I did this based on a question from Tony. Tony, remember when you asked me how many batteries would it take to hold the energy of a single 20-pound tank of propane?
Yes, I do
Yeah,
remember
remember
that.
that. And I sat there, I was just yapping on the phone, counting on my fingers, and I'm thinking, I think it's 100. It's a
Yeah,
hundred
it was a lot.
batteries to do that. And then I said, but let me get back to you tomorrow before you post it. And I was wrong. Wrong. It's 101 batteries. 100. I just
Oh,
didn't have enough digits to
no,
do all the decimal places in my head. So when you think
I
about a
will.
tank of propane compared to a battery. So this is why you could take an absorption refrigerator. They'll run for a week, 2 weeks. I have very limited experience with them, although I know people that do it all the time. Um, I get a little fearful of a fire inside of an RV. That's just me. But
Well,
I
I
know
will.
people that swear by them.
Well, let me share this. My buddy Bill has this same solar and lithium system as I have in my trailer. So it's a 1200 watts of solar on the roof, 460 amp hour battery. But he has an older Rockwood Mini Light, and he's got the gas absorption fridge. So when he's shuttling down the road, he doesn't run it on propane. He runs it on household power, 120 volt. So he is doing, he's not exposing himself to the risks
Right.
of an open flame with a fairly unlimited source of propane. He's running it on household,
And
120
they
volt
normally have got
power.
about a 600-watt heater in them. But the
And
issue, of course, is that, if you're trying to run that on batteries without something to go up, you can 600 watts will drain a 100 amp hour battery in 2 hours. I mean,
right,
you've got to have a way
but
to
the
make it
other
up.
thing, once it's cold, it's not as power hungry, right? I mean, it's just now maintaining. So anyway, that's how he runs his gas absorption
Right.
fridge.
Right. And I know that there's
So
leveling issues and there's a bunch of other things that you got to be careful with. You know, my little portable Vitrifrigo, it sits wherever it sits, and as long as it doesn't matter. Although what I've been looking to do is get one of these smaller ones. It's a little bit just big for day trips. I want to get a little one that'll just hold some sodas and a
well,
sandwich and that kind of stuff to stick behind the seat. in my
Come to
truck.
my garage. I've got plenty of them.
Tony's used refrigerator sales. Maybe you should bring an extra. If you got if you've got one, if you have the room, you're always full. If you got room when we meet up out at Frog, bring an extra one. You know what I
Okay.
want. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
for a 6 pack of beer and a sub and whatever.
Now here's something that I don't hear any discussion about on these 12-volt fridges. For example, this guy here, it's got a defrost cycle. So the old gas absorption, over a while it would freeze up, and there's all these ice crystals over the cooling fins. Well,
Right.
this has a defrost cycle. Where's the water going? There's not a drain under this trailer.
Oh,
That's something I'm very curious about. Where does that water go?
more to figure out. Okay. Any other questions from anybody out there? Is there anybody out there? I'm
I
channeling my
should
Pink
probably
Floyd.
reach in and get another beer.
You could get another beer. I think I'm going to go downstairs to get a beer. Okay, if you guys don't have any more questions right now, please leave them. I'll post a link to this or the same link. You can use any time to rewatch this later. Which one are you having now?
Now this is a hazy IPA from Sierra Nevada.
There you go. Tony and I are
But
both beer connoisseurs, as it were.
yep, I will invite our audience today. Typically, the Stressless Camping RV podcast comes out on Thursday morning. But in honor of my time spent here with my friend Mike Sokol, we released it today at 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is 8 p.m. your time.
Yes.
And
No,
we interviewed the
yeah.
vice president of Camco, and they've got a bunch of new cool stuff. So
Cool.
if that's
Look at
something
this.
you're interested in,
Yeah.
stresslesscamping.com.
I'll send you links on there. And Terry says he'll be bringing the beer all nice and cold in the mini refrigerator. Enjoy. See, this
And
is
to the
look.
frog rally.
That would be true. Now, one thing I found that it's the little things that make camping worthwhile, and it's also some of the little things that makes it horrible. And some of my worst memories when I was a kid was a cooler with ice in it. And then by the time we get there, all your sandwiches and everything you've made have
Yeah.
sunk to the bottom of the water. And there's nothing worse than soggy sandwiches. It was just
Oh boy, isn't that the
horrible.
case? And those alligator bags would not keep the water out.
No. Oh, Brian says, what kind of sewer? We're connoisseur. Connoisseur. Good golly,
No,
there's one in
Brian,
every
connoisseur.
connoisseur.
Now, Brian has a Furion chill cube on his Grand Design fifth wheel. He
Yeah.
upgraded.
If
He
all goes
upgraded his.
well, I'm going to have my Coleman on my little GeoPro, my 19-foot GeoPro, swapped out during the Frog Rally to a chill
Well,
cube.
that's the hope with this Rockwood Mini Light too, is that they are going to swap it out for the Furion chill cube with the heat pump function.
Yeah, that's why I definitely want a heat pump. So I've got two other questions that have come in. So Cushman Phillips says, who are the best manufacturers of 12-volt Danfos units? A Danfos unit is built by Danfos. There are a number of ones that are sort of kind of like it, but it's not a Danfos brand. And how do you know if you have a Danfoss? Boy, I don't know. There's got to be a way that you can
Yeah.
if you get a look on the thing, you can see what it is. Like I said, Danfoss, they were the inventor of all of this, but I know that there's a couple of other knockoffs of it, maybe not as good, but the Danfoss was the original one.
I mean, I would imagine probably Vitrifrigio. Is that how you
That
pronounce
is a
it?
Danfoss
Are
unit. They've told me
probably
that.
one of the better ones, right? Because they're the
Yes,
originator.
they're the
But I
originator of.
know, like Lippert will look at stuff. Lippert is very good at their whole production system, and they will look at stuff, and they may not nail it the first time, but they tend to be good at, like, these chill cubes.
Right.
They've really done a good job. And the one question that I think you and I are going to hopefully test is, what's the long-term reliability and what's the
Right.
performance. And Brian, whose message you just posted up there, he was running some tests because he has a heck of a battery and solar system in his fifth wheel, and he was testing it all out. They're in New Orleans right now, testing this
Yeah.
out in a very humid environment.
See, one of the things that I've threatened to do, if someone will give me one cheap enough to play with, would be just to get a cargo trailer that had room on the roof that I could put like 3 different air conditioners on it, and just have room in there that I could stick batteries in it and inverters. No living space, just stuff. And that way you could actually go run this thing.
Peggy just went on the other end of the trailer, but if she heard you mention cargo trailer, she might go all the way to Funkstown. Oh, there it is.
Oh no, look at
There
her.
it is.
Look at her.
Because I so want to build a cargo trailer conversion.
I just want to build a cargo trailer thing.
Yeah, there. I just got the fist of fury there.
The fist of fury. Wait a minute here. So
conversion.
Brian has got another thing. Our 12 volt, 16, I guess it's cubic foot, not square foot, cubic foot fridge has been running nonstop for almost 3 years.
That's right. They have the side by side. It's a Furrion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Say, Brian, you want to come on sometime here and do a thing with Tony and me?
Brian is an extremely knowledgeable RVer and also a very fun person to sit around and have beers with.
I can do up to 4 people at a time. Have I? Oh yes, I have met him.
At Quartzsite.
Yes, met him at Quartzsite. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Very cool guy.
Okay. Any other questions for us? Anyone? He says Furrion. That's what he's got.
Yep.
Furrion. I think, like I said, we have more to study. We can tell you. Oh, wait a minute. Brian says he's shy. He won't go on. Is that right? Is he really shy? Is that true, Tony? You're kind of shy.
Yes,
You're a real wallflower, aren't you, Tony?
Oh, without a doubt. Brian maybe more so than I am. He might be more like Peggy and less like me.
Well, you know what we should do?
I open the fridge, the light goes on, and I do 7 minutes of Joe.
So what we should do, like I said, is gather a little bit more data over the next month or so, come back and do some comparison, because like I said, I've got that 10-foot Dometic that's just sitting in the garage doing stuff. I mean, it's keeping food. It's got the freezer on it. That's where I go stick pizza and that other kind of stuff in it. And, I've got it all wired up to 12 volts. But what I should do is just put a monitor on it so I can see what the heck it's doing.
That would be
that
great
way. And then I've got another one. It's a graphing thermometer that we could just throw on there and just do a comparison and see what the average temperature was during the day and that kind of stuff. That would be fun. I just love, metering things. It's just fun.
Well, and I'll show you when I measured the temp of this fridge. What I used was another Lippert component. Oh, I can't reach it. Oh, here comes the fist.
The other hand,
the
fist
other
of fury.
Hand, it's right there. See it? Get them both, if you would. I could actually stand up, but, you're assuming I wore pants today. Okay, so we have, this is your typical inexpensive thermometer, and where is it reading right now? Of course, now I have it in my hand, so I want to be quick about this. It says it's 50. And then we have, boy, this thing has seen better days, a Lippert remote monitoring gadget, and I can actually use my phone to measure the temp. And this thing claims, come on, go back. It's not currently.
Okay.
It does disconnect now and then. But anyway,
okay. And I've got one last question here for us. Okay, so Thomas Boy, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Is there an advantage of
Piscitello.
using 6-volt batteries? And here's the deal: 6-volt batteries in series are heavy. They're still lead acid batteries. You still have to watch they don't boil over. You've got to check the
So it
electrolyte
is
level every
running
month or
hot.
so. And the reason why people say they're heavier duty is they are built to be abused. Normally they would be in a golf cart or something like that, where people are going to take it way below 50%. It's still the same technology as the other ones. It's just the plates and everything are thicker. I don't think there's any advantage to them compared to lithium batteries. If you can afford them, and they are getting cheaper all the time, lithium stuff is just really spectacular in terms
Well, here's
of what you can do with it, and it's lighter.
I I completely agree, and you can discharge them to essentially zero. Here's the trick on lithium. We Lion Energy works with Costco, and they periodically put their batteries on sale, and a lot of people buy the Lion Energy batteries, and a decent amount of people then return the batteries because they just haven't figured it out. Lion, when they have their refurbished sale, by gosh, those batteries are cheap. And they're just people who have taken them and like, oh, I can't figure this out, and returned them, and they may have one or two discharges left. Uh, Rather, one or two discharges on the battery because
And
they
they're
can
good for
measure
five
how
or ten
many.
thousand cycles.
Oh, yeah, they have a lifetime warranty, so that's one place I'd look is those
Yeah,
Lion Energy in their whatever they call it, reused or recycled, whatever.
yeah, and
Gosh, that's a good deal, and it's
yeah.
a good battery.
And the thing that I've also found out is there's a lot of people that just stick them in, or somebody has installed it for them, just with a regular flooded lead acid charger, and they'll only charge up to about 80%. You'll never get
Yeah,
them up much above that.
yeah, and
And remember, they're also, if you put a heavier duty charger in there, you got to make sure you make your wiring heavy, because if you start it with like a 30 amp charger and now you've got an 80 amp one, you'll melt your wires. So it's not hard if you follow basic electrical principles. But I've got articles on all these. I'll put together a little how to. What do you think about things here? Because
yeah,
I
in
think I'm up to
fact,
like 900 articles that I've redone on Substack in the last two and a
my
half years.
gosh, yeah, it's a fantastic resource you've created. We Here's an interesting thing. So our system is it's all master volt, as is the one in your trailer. And somehow I wasn't getting up to beyond 80% state of charge. The heck's going on? So Brian actually, who messaged us, lent me a Windows computer because we're Mac at
I'm a
our
Mac
house,
shop here too. Yeah.
right? And the ABC upfitters, logged in and said, "You're set to flooded batteries." So literally it's a drop
One
down
click.
menu, and
Right.
yeah, we're back to normal. So
Yep.
it's but yeah, you want to make sure that there's so many settings and wiring configurations and all of that, and it really does help if you're not comfortable doing these installs yourself. It's good to have a partner who
Get a
really knows what they're
professional
doing.
installer. Battery stuff is actually a good bit more dangerous at 120 volts, because you can get many, many hundreds of amperes of current flowing through things. Weld your wedding ring between the wrench and the frame of the vehicle. You can dump acid on yourself. You can have the battery blow up and blow acid in your face. I have seen all of this stuff happen up close and personal. You don't
Oh yeah,
want to
explodey stuff is no good.
explodey stuff with sulfuric acid. No good at all. All right, everybody. I think it's Miller time or whatever time right now. I'm going to go have a cold one. There you go, and you can watch this later if you like, and I'll follow up and add some other links in there. Back to Stressless Camping. Tony from Stressless Camping, thank you so much for hanging out tonight and giving us your
Mike,
insights.
it's always a pleasure spending time with you.
Well, thank you very much. And always a pleasure spending time with the readership. So send in what questions you want, man, to both Tony and me. And, we'll try to do what we can.
Sounds like fun.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Later.